Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Hallelujah from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. It is a Tuesday, the 13th day of December, and a very warm welcome on this cold morning to today. And we thank you very much for joining us, although it's quite cold. But our job is one, to make sure that we bring in a little bit of flavor and light into your morning. Of course, keep you updated on what is going on across the country and, of course, beyond borders. And for you to know what is happening within the country, and of course a lot more that we will be taking you through, analyze some of the issues that seem to be a little bit making headlines, but also give you details of what that could mean. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I am with Kirabo Nyonyintono in the house, and Felix Nkunda, of course, here to take you through what is happening across the country. Now, talking of which, we have seen that President Yoweri Museveni has directed the Inspector General of Police, that is Martin Okoth-Ochola, to reinstate the roadblocks across town and, of course, beyond the town, where those areas actually just a few days ago, about a week or so, had been, roadblocks had been removed. And according to the spokesperson of police, they're saying that this kind of gave a leeway for criminals to continue committing crimes. And this is why the president has found it only right to reinstate those roadblocks. Well, we're about to find out that this could actually be effective in fighting crime. That is one thing that we'll be also talking about later on, but also to look into what has been happening with the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence ending. We also did see more activists coming up to petition a law that has been in play, especially regarding sex offenders, regarding people, idle and disorderly. Just you could be arrested by looking a certain way or being in a certain place idle. But again, activists did protest that, and now the Constitutional Court of Justice has scrapped off some of those. It comes as good news, but also police has been instructed to take note and make sure that they are not arresting the wrong people. Well, that and much more. But let me bring in Robert. How are you feeling this morning? Good morning. And I can see there's a little bit of smile on your face.
Well, why I'm smiling this morning is because my Archbishop, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church, and a friend as well, Dr. Stephen Kazimba Mugalu, came out and said, we are going to cut ties with the Church of England or Canterbury because continuously they seem to be acting contrary to biblical principles. Now, why I have the smile on my face is, you see, we had a kind of worshipping we had here. We had our religion. My good friend Felix will allude to that there was a way we were worshipping and we had a God we were worshipping. Now, the missionaries brought Christianity in this country. They preached the gospel. They taught us religion. We learned religion very well. Now, what is interesting is those that taught us what we shouldn't do. Actually, there is a very famous story in the Bible of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and the wife, where God destroyed an entire city because of acts of homosexuality, lesbianism, among others. And when the wife turned back, she became a pillar of salt. So these are evils that the Bible totally says they should never, because I don't see anywhere apart from, okay, the floods, but where God destroys an entire city. So these guys go ahead and ordain as Dean of the Church of Canterbury a man in a same-sex marriage, homosexual, if I may say that. And this, at the understanding of what we were taught by those now practicing what they told us we shouldn't do, that is a no-go area for us. So he says we are going to cut ties because we can no longer continue with the people. Even the Bible says it, if a brother makes you stumble, talk to them, they're not willing to change, please let that brother go. So my joy is that confusion, that are we being more religious than those that taught us what to do? Are they the ones getting lost? Because there's even a saying, you can't be more Catholic than the Pope.
Yeah.
So now, the Anglican Church's base founders and all that are in Canterbury, England. Now us who learned, who were taught, are saying that is wrong. Those that came with what they taught us are accepting this kind of thing to continue. And above all, in Canterbury, ordaining a dean, it could have been somewhere else. But Canterbury, you ordain such a person. So this is the story that is lingering in my mind. I'm having so many questions. Did we understand better? Because I've seen students who understand topics better than the teachers.
Yeah.
You know, or are we having the Spirit of God is speaking to us more and revealing more to us than those people who actually brought the faith?
Well, a lot of questions, and so do a lot of Ugandans actually, because the Archbishop actually did also speak out saying he wants the Church of Uganda to be self-reliant in order to avoid depending on foreign aid in terms of finances. And I think that is also a big step, because most of these churches will bring out such certain characters, all in the name of we are supporting you. So I would rather do away with the support and make sure that our morals are not degraded because of such teachings. If you do not follow the right biblical teachings, we will cut ties. And I think that was a good move, and very, very impressive words coming in from the Archbishop. Felix, a very good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Mollen?
I'm doing all right.
How do you find this cold, lovely morning?
Well, it's a bit something I like, the coldness, but I know it's an inconveniencing type of weather, so yeah, I'm there.
Weather in Africa does give different fusions of pleasure. For some people, it's good. For the rest, I can tell as a matter of fact, many people are waking up to flooded sitting rooms, flooded bedrooms, flooded compounds, just to mention but a few. But of course, it's a bit showering. In some areas, it was quite a heavy downpour. But for some of you who do plan on coming in town, be very careful. Now, the biggest worry is that on days like this, we also lose lots of people because of the unplanned channels of water. We have open manholes in this city, surprisingly. We have had people fall in those manholes, but people have been taken by water. So you need to be careful as you do drive or find your way to the beautiful city of Kampala. But what Robert said about the Church of Uganda, it's quite a mixed feeling. It's a hard one, and I don't know if I was telling one of my friends that probably the gods are starting to act. Our gods, we abandoned them for something that probably we didn't know, and now we are running back to ourselves because I'm imagining. And you know, this sensation thing, conceding, it started way back in 2009. I remember the first trial was with the USA church, because it's the first one that came out openly about same-sex. And I remember there was there was something to do with a numerical conference that happened in Washington. And then by then, the Archbishop of Uganda tried to put up a stance, because these things, they don't understand them. Like, it's just like you're telling people to do things they don't understand. I'm imagining our good friend Kazimba ordaining, you know, standing, presiding over a same-sex marriage. You can imagine one day. And
on a pulpit in a church in Uganda.
It's quite funny.
It's abominable.
Let me tell you something, Mollen. Look at Robert. Honestly and truly. You wake up one day and Robert is your girlfriend. And with due respect.
Me, I'm wedding Felix.
Honestly, how do you live?
Hold hands and
how do you live Mollen? And you go for Robert. In all fairness, Kati Robert yokumukwaata
and the way I think a lot of white nations have embraced it, and they feel okay about it. For heaven's sake, this is something that it shouldn't be normalized. And I'm glad actually you've seen the Parliament of Uganda way from way back when we had Speaker Rebecca Kadaga. These are issues that we have been talking about, saying we shall not agree to something like that as Uganda. And I think it's also demolishing for humanity to see that these were things, even in the biblical times, that were punishable, that God was against and punished people for, and we're here embracing them. I don't know what that speaks to the Christianity these days. And it's not just Church of Uganda, but mostly this born-again faith. They seem to be okay with it in some of these nations. They are marrying people every day, on a daily. And you see someone...
Pentecostal churches.
Yeah. And it's really sad.
I love the word that you've used, some of them. But also the problem with some Pentecostal churches, we must call us spades and be very honest. Most of these churches are funded greatly by these countries. And he who pays the piper, if not guided by the Spirit of God, greatly influences them. This young man from nowhere begins preaching, gets connections, goes to the USA anywhere, gets sponsors, we are going to build a church, we are going to give you this, then comes back home. And what happens? They will influence him. You only to understand that the major funders are homos, are members of the, they call it LGBT, something like that. So he's caught within something that he can't now run out of, so he just has to let it be. So that is the challenge they have. And that's why even the Archbishop said, we must learn to be financially independent. I think in his speech you add that.
Yeah.
Because he knows that as long as we do not have sources of earning that can sustain various works of the church, it is very easy for us to be influenced to support such actions. But I just can't understand how you wake up and say that for you, you enjoy being with a fellow woman as your partner, or you enjoy being with a fellow man as your partner. And His Excellency has already said that he looked for scientific evidence to prove that these people are born that way, but he failed to get that scientific evidence.
Well, I think it's really pretty sad that we have to be here and, of course, talk about an issue that most of us, disgusted by. But this is what is happening across the world. And it is only fair that we have people in faith talk about it and help sensitize most of this information, because anyone could be easily corrupted by this, especially the younger generation who are starting to embrace, this Western culture. It's what everyone is doing, so it's okay. It's important for us to teach them and make them learn that this is not something that we want to, have in our nation. Well, a lot is happening across the country, and of course we want to take you through some of those stories. Robert, what do we have in the local scene?
We'll begin with His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who is in the United Kingdom, where he spent the bigger part of the morning engaging with potential investors, fund managers, processors of food and large commodity buyers at a business breakfast meeting in the United Kingdom. The breakfast meeting was organized by the Presidential Advisory Committee on Exports and Industrial Development in conjunction with the Commonwealth Enterprise Council, was held at the Royal Gardens Hotel in London. In his remarks, President Museveni said Uganda has no enemies in the world, hence is willing and ready to work with everyone to tap into the agricultural and mineral potential. He said Uganda's naturality puts it in a comfortable position for doing business with anyone or everyone around the world.
Now the UPDF developments, where we see the Chief of Defense Forces, General Wilson Badi, has flagged off officers and men of UPDF destined for Somalia at Peace Support Operation Center Singo in Nakaseke district. Now, General Badi urged the officers under the Yuga bag to strictly degrade all Al-Shabaab so that the Somalia army can take over the responsibility. Now, General Badi expressed gratitude to the partners that have supported the UPDF in its pre-deployment training, and General Badi also thanked UPDF commanders for the infrastructure improvement of the training centers, which included the construction of the trainee dormitories, administration offices, among others.
And moving on, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has directed the reinstatement of roadblocks on the major highways owing to increasing criminality. Police spokesperson Fred Enanga confirmed the presidential directive to police institutions, as this is another mechanism of trailing criminality. This was at a Security Weekly briefing held at police headquarters in Naguru, Kampala. The Inspector General of Police, John Martins Okoth Ochola, under the guidance of the President, directed all territorial commanders to reinstate roadblocks. This comes a few weeks after the President directed the removal of all these roadblocks. Sporadic attacks on police posts are another reason for the reinstatement of these roadblocks for quick and guided trailing of criminals. Security have also assessed the significance of Fika Salama in this festive season, and without these roadblocks, the checkpoints, the public is exposed to reckless driving. Roadblocks crews are cautioned against extortion and other forms of corruption tendencies while on the road.
Now, a section of human rights lawyers and activists are seeking court release of all who were arrested and have not yet been convicted under the Rogue and Vagabonds law, according to Justin Balia, a lawyer of Human Rights Awareness and Protection Forum. Welcomed the ruling as a relief, but asked court to act accordingly. The Constitutional Court recently repealed and decriminalized petty offences charged under the Rogue and Vagabonds from the penal code, and police also acknowledged the court ruling and immediately effected it, but warned that some disorders, like being a public nuisance, are still punishable.
And crossing over onto the international scene, Iran says it has publicly hanged a 23-year-old in what is the second execution linked to the recent anti-government protests. Majidreza Rangvad, 23, was hanged early on Monday in the city of Mashhad, the judiciary said. A court convicted him of enmity against God after finding he had stabbed to death 2 members of the Parliamentary Basid Resistance Force. Rangvad was hanged just 23 days after his arrest. Human rights groups have warned the protesters are being sentenced to death after sham trials with no due process. His mother was not told of the execution until after his death. Now his family were then given the name of the cemetery and plot number. When they turned up, security agents were burying his body. Opposition activist collective 1500 Saville tweeted that the family were telephoned by an official at 700 local time and told, "We have killed your son," and buried his body at the Baharist El Reza cemetery. And in another story, the Bahamas police has arrested Sam Bankman-Fried, founder of the collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX, the country's attorney general has said. He will appear in a magistrate's court in the Bahamas on Tuesday, authorities in the Caribbean added. Police said Mr. Bankman-Fried was arrested for financial offenses against the laws in the U.S. and the Bahamas. Last month, the FTX filed for bankruptcy in the U.S., leaving many users unable to withdraw their funds. Mr. Bankman will be held in custody pursuant of the nation's Extradition Act, the Attorney General of the Bahamas said in a statement. Wall Street regulators also said that they would be taking action against Mr. Bankman-Fried. Now, Mr. Bankman's lawyer did not immediately reply to the BBC request for a comment. The Nigerian government has rejected Reuters news agency report published last week about a secret program for forced abortion run by military in the country's northeast, Information Minister Lai Mohammed said. The Reuters investigation reported since 2013 a secret military program that has involved termination of at least 10,000 pregnancies among women and girls, many of whom had been kidnapped and raped by the members of the Boko Haram group. Sources included dozens of witnesses' accounts and documentation reviewed by Reuters. Now, the military has also denied carrying out abortions and denounced the report as a body of insults of the Nigerians' people and culture. And in climate news, the target is dominating at Biodiversity Summit, but the problem of finding balance between indigenous people's rights and conservation remains unsolved. Just as the climate conference focuses on 1.5 degrees Celsius, the UN Biodiversity Conference appears to have found its North Star, protecting 30% of the land and sea by 2030. From the moment delegates landed in Montreal airport, adverts of the baggage across were frank about Canada's aim for COP15, achieving 30 by 30, the target line and the tagline for the proposal. Now, the perceived success of the overall conference hangs on this single target, said those that support it. Now, the science is clear that humanity must better protect key parts of the planet, and the destruction of forests and other vital ecosystems must stop by 2030 if the world is to meet 1.5 target, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Oh, very interesting stories right there. Some very sad, really. And what about the Rogue and Vagabond Act? I don't know. I want to bring in Felix here. What do you think of this new ruling from the Constitutional Court?
Well, I think, of course, it does try to do away with a decolonized legal system, because, as I said, I think a couple of days ago, around a week or so, that these laws in particular were colonial, castigated to deal with conjuring black people and all these kind of things. But they come at a right time where we have challenges with congestion in prisons, challenges of backlogs in the judiciary. So these will definitely help. But the big problem is whether or not the police is willing to do away with enforcing some, because there have been ventures of them getting some common.
And they also did say that some of them, okay, the point is some we shall not do away, especially public nuisance. I'm wondering what that entails, because the court is now clear. This is, you cannot just arrest someone because, you know, you think they're just dressed in a certain way. But the court didn't also talk about the exoneration against public nuisance. That's still a castigated crime in the cases and the offenses of the Ugandan laws. So that in itself is still applicable under enforcement.
Though yesterday we saw activists and sex workers or ladies of the night complaining that, well, police is still arresting us, despite the fact that the ruling and even the police spokesperson, among the crimes he pointed out was you can now no longer arrest such people.
Yeah. And by the way, when we talk about sex workers, it includes the men too, because there are men that are also in that business.
Where are they from?
It's
Mollen,
come on. Telling you, you can do not gender this and say ladies of the night. That is what I'm against, because they are men who are actually sex workers.
Let's not just be gender insecure.
No, this
where have you seen
men lining up on the streets? Like you find them at Speak, you find them elsewhere.
Oh my God.
And
I can't believe you guys are not aware of something like this.
No, there's nothing wrong with not being aware. You make us aware. That's what we're asking. Tell us.
Well, I am telling you. Do your research, but these exist.
Clearly, you don't also but I know you love the feminist wing. Yes. I know you love your... But it is what it is.
Well, I'll let this go for now. But like I'm saying, do your research. This is something that is also out there. And
maybe it is a 1% if it ever is, or in negatives. Because I've been around for some time. And my brother for a longer time, Felix. But I don't think he has come across. I don't think he has come across any place or heard of any place or read of any place
soliciting?
Where men stand and they are there for money.
You guys seem to be wanting to defend something that could be there. I think you should leave a possibility that this is a fact and it's out there. And well, it all falls in the same category. No, I know young boys who go for sugar mummies, unless you're people who go in relationships purposely to get money. That I would accept. But standing, I doubt. Well, we also this morning want to tell you more about your health and, of course, what you can do to boost your immune system. And this is where Uncle Bob comes in.
Well, hallelujah, ginger tea, hallelujah, banana juice drink, hallelujah, tamarind drink. These are the drinks that you should have on a daily basis. Every day, make sure you take any of these 3 flavors because they will boost your immune system, they will keep you healthy, they will ensure that you make savings and don't spend money paying medical bills, going to the doctors, and also yet you're less productive because you're not feeling fine. So there are no treatments, but they're immune boosters. At just 1,500, you get this bottle. 1,500, you get this bottle. Any retail shop, any supermarket, the drinks are available for you.
Well, there you go. And of course, we'll also be going into our newsreel. Much more to be discussed about the reinstated roadblocks. To what extent, to what end, what are the implications, that we're about to find out. But for right now, we want to take you through our song of the day. And of course, you do know this is leading up to Christmas, so we want to make sure that you have the mood to get into that. Well, after that, we'll be coming back with more discussion on the topic of the day.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
You have for takeaway, You have for takeaway,
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. It is a Tuesday, the 13th day of December, and a very warm welcome on this cold morning to today. And we thank you very much for joining us, although it's quite cold. But our job is one, to make sure that we bring in a little bit of flavor and light into your morning. Of course, keep you updated on what is going on across the country and, of course, beyond borders. And for you to know what is happening within the country, and of course a lot more that we will be taking you through, analyze some of the issues that seem to be a little bit making headlines, but also give you details of what that could mean. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I am with Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono in the house, and Felix Nkunda, of course, here to take you through what is happening across the country. Now, talking of which, we have seen that President Yoweri Museveni has directed the Inspector General of Police, that is Martin Okoth-Ochola, to reinstate the roadblocks across town and, of course, beyond the town, where those areas actually just a few days ago, about a week or so, had been, roadblocks had been removed. And according to the spokesperson of police, they're saying that this kind of gave a leeway for criminals to continue committing crimes. And this is why the president has found it only right to reinstate those roadblocks. Well, we're about to find out that this could actually be effective in fighting crime. That is one thing that we'll be also talking about later on, but also to look into what has been happening with the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence ending. We also did see more activists coming up to petition a law that has been in play, especially regarding sex offenders, regarding people, idle and disorderly. Just you could be arrested by looking a certain way or being in a certain place idle. But again, activists did protest that, and now the Constitutional Court of Justice has scrapped off some of those. It comes as good news, but also police has been instructed to take note and make sure that they are not arresting the wrong people. Well, that and much more. But let me bring in Robert. How are you feeling this morning? Good morning. And I can see there's a little bit of smile there.
Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
The festive season is here and it's Christmas in 4G from Airtel. Get the most affordable 4G smartphone in Uganda, now heavily discounted from 250,000 shillings to 150,000 shillings only. Yes, 150,000 shillings only to keep you connected to your loved ones this holiday season.
Dial *175*94# to activate free 1 GB instantly and 100% double data on all weekly and monthly bundles for 3 months. Get one today while stock lasts from the nearest Airtel shop. Happy holidays this festive season with Airtel, the smartphone network. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning. If you are just joining us, it is Good Morning Uganda, and right now we're going into newsreel discussing more about the reinstatement of roadblocks on main highways. And just 2 months ago, President Museveni did direct for the removal of these roadblocks across main highways. But then it has been observed that this kind of vacuum did create more crime, related incidences along the roads, also including accidents being rampant. And this has been because of some of the things that were removed, talking about issues like the Fika Salama initiative that was aimed at regulating traffic across the roads. But then it has been observed that these were getting out of hand. And of course, as you prepare for the festive season, it was also only fair that we reinstate some of those to make sure that we reduce accidents during the Christmas season, but also make sure that people are safe on the roads. And this and more is why the police is now going to be enforcing the presidential directive, once again saying that we should be reinstating some of these roadblocks. But we also want to understand more on the effectiveness of this kind of initiative, and talking about whether or not some of these drivers are even aware that now it's going to be really hard to get away with certain crime that they have been committing on the roads now that we have these roadblocks back in play. Robert, I want to get your understanding on this. How effective is this going to be?
Thank you so much. Well, to begin with, in fighting crime, what we call visibility is very important. I was reading a book by some historian, and they said when the missionaries were, when the explorers or our colonial masters in some countries, when they wanted to conquer, they would parade their soldiers and move around the city, move around these areas. The soldiers were sure they're not going to fire any bullet. They are not going to hurt anybody. But when these Africans saw these soldiers marching around, they would get scared and say they have the guns, they have this. So in fighting crime, visibility is very important. Just by knowing there is a roadblock there, there's a roadblock at the other corner, on specific highway. This in one way will hinder someone. from committing a crime because they will think that they may land into trouble at any one point.
Yeah.
Even in developed worlds, they mount checkpoints. So that is one area just to begin with, them being there. That if a person is to kidnap a child and say they are taking them to witch doctor, a sorcerer, or a native, whatever term you want to use, in Masaka, someone would say it's not easy. You can't pass Wawama, you can't pass here, you can't pass there. Supposing in that time this child makes an alarm, I will not be part of that. But when they know it's a clear route, you'll have your person, you'll drive through. So visibility to begin with. 2, one of the things roadblocks help is coordinated arresting. This is what happens. That in case a crime has been committed in Natete, and the police in Natete, through their talking systems, people usually call them radio call. Let me use that easy for easy understanding. And a message goes that car registration, this number plate, color, model, this is heading to Masaka. They have committed an offense. Now, because these roadblocks are there almost 24/7, it is a matter of these people at this roadblock to be aware that such a car is coming, should it move in that area where the roadblock is. And most of the times, that car or that criminal is going to be arrested. Now, if you have the cameras that have also been vital in fighting crime, and they can monitor the movement of this vehicle, it is just an issue of telling the next checkpoint that is the person, nab them. It is different from saying, let's organize which patrol, where are you? You know, now you hit Masaka, start chasing. So, they help in coordinated arrests of a crime, of a criminal in transit. 2, roadblocks help in arresting undetected crimes. For example, someone could have committed a crime and nobody notices. Yeah. Many of people are arrested on roadblocks with stolen animals. People get a primo, they put in a goat, then it has a cape on top, so their dream may think, muntu anyenya mutwe. Now because you're moving through a roadblock, police officer will look into this car, say, but help us, is this one sleeping? Not identify it as a goat. People are using hipsums to take cars. To take cows. So they help that even when a crime has been committed, it has not yet been noticed by authorities. As this person is driving through, or suspiciously someone may come, may see they're approaching a roadblock and they want to make a U-turn very fast. So it raises concern. Why is this one trying to make a U-turn very fast? So they are able to know that this is a suspicious character, then they will pursue him and arrest him. But also roadblocks help to create trust in the public. As we speak, there are many members of the public that had gotten panic. You know, we had people who would stage and still, you see Chabadaza police post, there was some shooting. Here there was some shooting. People are wondering, but you see, what is the situation? You're removing some police posts, about 129. So when they get on the list, there is some security on the roads. You know, security is funny. That someone will have confidence because of a measure put in place. But also they help in quick response. There are some crimes that are committed, say in public transport. Remember these days, the times when they will tell you, you've sat in a taxi, they tell you, sit properly, sit properly. Then someone is like closing the door for you. Yet they're stealing, they're robbing you of your money and what. So people would keep quiet. When he reaches the roadblock, he says, officer, this people have stolen this from me. When a person is kidnapped or anything, you know that once I reach a roadblock, it is a moment for me to sound an alarm, to do something, and I know people will respond. But also, these roadblocks help in fighting road accidents. You see, people can overspeed. People in Uganda, people drink at any time. Are you aware that at 1 p.m. you can find someone who is driving under the influence of alcohol, drunken driving? So when these operations are there, like Fifika Salama that used to stage at different points, people are aware, you don't overspeed, because at the next destination there is a roadblock. At the next second, do I have what is required of me? Do I have a driving license? Am I not drunk because I won't survive this roadblock? Things like overloading are also reduced. So all forms of crimes, I must say that roadblocks in one way help. However, if they stick to their role. Because I have a problem with territorial commanders that some of these things, they don't properly brief their forces to know what they are going to do. That is why earlier the president had said, no, these roadblocks are causing unnecessary traffic jam. They are causing delays in terms of transportation of goods. There is corruption, there is extortion. So reinstating them, we hope and pray and believe that this time the territorial commanders are going to be very keen to avoid reasons as to why. For example, unnecessary traffic jam. Where there is a roadblock, you see cars are going very slowly, delay of goods. A person has nothing to do with URA, is a police officer, open, let's check, what? Now where are you taking these ones? Do you have the money? Seems you've stolen them. Bring this, bring that, all in the name of extortion, so that you say, officer, Christmas, you know, and someone has to part with money because depending on the number of roadblocks. Because you pay a bribe here, you pay a bribe there. They seem to lack direction sometimes. They seem to be everywhere and searching for everything. You seem to ask him, okay, what do you want? I present it to you. They don't know. They want everything and they don't want everything.
Exactly. And right there is actually where I want to bring in Felix. Because, yes, Robert did talk about the effectiveness of the roadblocks. And clearly, it is something that we need in play to, get in touch with everything that he did talk about. But we also know that there is room for corruption, especially on the side of police. People get away with reckless driving. There is, a criminal just has to somehow, like Robert mentioned, this is for Christmas, and that is how we are getting more crimes, actually. We want to understand, is police really going to be following up this, and how can we curb this room of corruption in our security officers right there?
Well, this whole sanctioning of roadblocks is not an is not a uniform approach to the insecurity. If you may notice that this is supposed to work together with the various other avenues that have been put in place by, of course, the security agencies. You've noticed that at some point there was even a discussion, because of what's been happening most recent, that we will bring back the LDUs. It's one of those very many other thought security aspects in the bid to deal with criminality. The biggest fear is that as we approach to festive seasons, criminality also is in the increase. But away from all that, there's a bigger question that what is the cause of these insecurities? Like have the Uganda police or other security agencies or sister agencies taken time to understand what the cause would be? Secondly, are these simple petty offenses, or we are looking at terrorism and big offenses for this matter? Now, when you're dealing with sophisticated crime, not that I'm actually an expert, but I know for a fact, given some of the stories you have been doing and the interactions you have had, when you're dealing with such kind of crime that is a bit sophisticated, you may want to use all channels. One, if you want to take on a spectrum of 10 and try to evaluate how roadblocks work, I'll tell you. One, you need to know that security is more of psychological than actually physical presence or what. How many of you have ever been to a roadblock when you know you don't have something right in your car or your, I don't know if any of you has ever had that experience. Or have you ever been stopped and someone says nothing, but you know, maybe you don't have a good tire, you didn't carry your driving license, you didn't, there's something just not right, or probably you've over the car, of, like, I don't know, it is psychological.
Yeah.
So, by the fact that someone stops you, and at that point you're already thinking of, what am I going to do? You know what I'm going to say? That's how corruption comes in sometimes. And what. So, the installation of roadblocks is timely, if I may borrow a word, is timely. However, as we put roadblocks, are other security institutions working? Most recently, we have been having lots of shootings at police stations, but are police officers at these stations? These are questions we are asking time and again. And while they are there, do they even know what to do? I think we have a challenge in Uganda that our police has focused on training a more domesticated approach to policing. Policemen are more or less like civilians in this country. They are how they work, how they walk, how they do things. They spend a lot of time with civilians, and they have become civilians themselves. You know, you find a police officer and also of a place is the one who deals in land transactions in that place. Ye broker wa mataka in that area is the one who tell you wali itaka wali tunda. The civilized, I don't know if it's the level of intertwining the civilian life with police is what, in my opinion, is bringing the biggest challenge. They are so casual. Away from these field force guys who put on blue a bit, but you go to a police station and it is like a home. People are so comfortable. Mm-hmm. That's why they're always caught off guard. And that brings us to question, like, how often do we have these fresher courses for police officers in terms of dealing with such attacks? You find a police officer and in their life they have never shot a bullet. You know,
maybe
they don't have to shoot to people, but they're supposed to be trained, awaiting such instances of attacks and what. You get the point? I think there's something for us to check with our colleagues in police in terms of training, in terms of how they are ready for such things. You find an officer, let me tell you, it is so sad. You find a police officer, nga munene, kino lubuto lukomedi, tasana kutambula. He's now, even when anything, anything, the man can hardly even run. Now, how does that person protect themselves and later on the other people? And these are the small things we are missing. In as much as others are working, the police needs a bit of shake-up. They are so comfortable. You find officers driving V8s, OCs, Barikumakubu, they are always, you go in nice cafes. All cafes in Kampala are full of police officers. OC of where, OC of where. They are never at their workplace. They are in luxury hotels. I don't know whatever meetings. Papa, no, I don't know what they are doing. I can't say deals. But every hotel you go, and you can start today. For some of you who are watching, go to this hotel, the Speak. Go to Forest Mall. Go to Java's. In 2 minutes, there's an officer moving in. Donned in a good uniform. Some of them now no longer even put on uniform.
You only notice the Western, okay?
Yeah, you just move around with short rifle. This is not policing.
But aren't we asking the same people that are corrupt to teach others to go what to do about corruption? Because how is the police supposed to teach other police officers to not be corrupt when the top administration, like you just put it, are also part of the syndicate?
No, you see, no. That would be a big statement to put it that way. But no, they have challenges. Yeah, no, they have their challenges. But I think even this Mollen is not even about the corruption bit. It's about the entire demeanor of a police officer. They don't take their work serious. Let's be honest. For some of you viewers, even police officers who are watching, some of your colleagues, you know them. Someone spends 2 days without attending to a duty station. And there's an era of officers, I think. some young officers who are, there's that era of some officers who are very problematic.
We call them now the elite forces. They
Yeah,
have read books.
they have
Someone is a medical doctor, Felix. He enters police. Someone is a lawyer. He enters police. Someone is... So their level of civility
and
is,
that's what I was saying.
They're less coercive as we may want it. And when you talk to them, they'll tell you that was a colonial way of policing. Now what we are doing, we are more of civil. We are in the people.
No, you see,
we live, we
do you know why?
Cherish, we socialize.
In few times you've had such challenges with the Uganda People's Defense Forces, or the army in particular. You see, again, it is not a matter, it's not a fashion, it is not theater that you see we have what we call barracks. There's a history to that. Kirabo, I can't be with you in a bar, mabara muzina neba osi, neba mundongo mujikuba ne osi, in the shops osi yewola kaunga kakati, how is he going to come to enforce against ekirabo gwe yewola kaunga kuchalo? So and this is for me has been the trouble. And as much as we talk at the very many avenues, the police has become so lax in terms of its entire decorum. Honestly, the police are...
But you see, Felix, these are also, you know, they are humans. They have a
no
lifestyle.
One has said
like
they are not humans, Mollen. And honestly, we appreciate that. But because of the vocation they serve, it calls for them to behave a particular way. And I've just given you one of the examples. Some of our officers are beneficiaries of some of the criminalities. And some of them are tied in these situations because they put themselves available. I've given you a scenario where you have a police officer who's a broker of land. Now, what if that land has issues and he's the one supposed to go and arrest, and yet he got a kickback or a fee or a commission?
Actually, when you go to a number of police stations, you'll find that most of the friends of high-ranking officers at these police stations are the criminals. Talk about land dealers, you grab one of their phones, just go to the phone book, you'll know how connected they are. Or when they're in trouble, you just go, oh!
But we want to tap into the solution now. Because these are things that we now know and most of us have witnessed. Like Felix did put it clearly, most of us have been caught up on roadblocks and immediately know exactly what to do to get out of that situation. Well, it might not be pretty, but it works. Ugandans get to know that this is a system and they are part of, you know, actually, if we talk about being corrupt, they are part of the chain because you know, if I do this, I avoid more trouble. Probably you're running for something, you want to save that time. This is there. These are facts. We want to find a solution now. What more can be done? And as we move to conclude, Robert,
One, for me, I'll go back to the topic of the day, specifically the reinstatement of roadblocks. What needs to be done? One, territorial commanders must brief these roadblock crews on what exactly they are looking for. Because many times, many of them seem to know nothing about what exactly they have come to do. Because when it's an operation, if say they are going to round up criminals, the commander briefs them. We are going to do this, we are going to do that. But on roadblocks, it seems like they are permanently there and they don't know what to do. So they roit around on anything, any issue. So proper briefing and supervision of the men and women that are going to be manning these reinstated roadblocks. Two, we must understand that all is not going to be dealt with these roadblocks. These roadblocks must be supported by other elements. One, technology as well, because this is where we're going to increase their effectiveness. We have the cameras that they can be coordinated tracking of criminals. That will help so much. But also, we must ensure that these roadblocks also are not easily predicted. You know? That from year in, year end, you know this roadblock is at one place. Huh? A taxi operator can even tell you, here drives faster, here. So how do we ensure that we keep on either moving them? Yes, it's the same highway, but today where I found the roadblock, again I find it, a whole year it is there. Well, criminals also learn to divert. They'll tell you, no, katioita mukano kapanya, then you get off. Because, so these roadblocks, stationing them at one particular place is something we should now go away with. But also we should have rotational deployments.
Yes.
Someone doesn't say, this roadblock, I know this officer, kamukubire tuja. The other roadblock, we need to have rotational deployments of people on these roadblocks.
Yeah.
And finally, also, let's ensure these roadblocks are not a reason for causing jam. They should be swift enough. You know, there's so much delays and you wonder what they are looking for. A bit swift enough because His Excellency pointed that out. Unnecessary delays and cause of traffic jams. But also Ugandans must try our best to support these initiatives. For they tell you, get out of the taxi, tomorrow it up roadblock or demo. Yeah. But you're willing to do that. You know, someone tells you, help me pass this roadblock. Then, so we must ensure that you're also supporting this, because a criminal-minded person has no friend. More than a thief who is your friend, but you don't know. It's the same person who will tell a gang that Mollen got 100 million. You go, I get my share. And well, you come in the morning, oh, sorry, Mollen, they even beat you. These people. So a criminal-minded person knows no relative, knows no friend. Together, we must fight crime. Exactly. And Felix, as we conclude, what can be done? Do we involve a community? Do we talk about police doing more to make sure that we are actually efficiently looking at these roadblocks as a solution to the ongoing crime?
Well, of course, for me, the starting point is that we must revise the professional decorum of our officers, and I've said that and I will insist on that. That says a lot on how much they can do and how far they can go in doing or executing their job. The second one, for me, would be when you talk about these roadblocks, I think some of our officers have not mastered the art of interviewing, or probably, as he said, Robert said, you may have to communicate to them what you're looking for. What's the purpose of this roadblock? Many roadblocks in this country are by far manned by traffic officers. And the questions they will be asking are related to traffic offenses or what. So we must realign our instructions in terms of what we are looking for. But thirdly, and probably last for me, we must engage communities in policing. Every criminal comes from a particular community. At family level, at society, at all levels, criminals have families or areas where they relate. So it's only courteous for us to use the communities to be assistful. But there's no way you're going to use communities if we don't work on our relationship, police and relationship of the wananchi. Lastly, I think also funding is key. Time and again we have been here saying the Uganda Police Force needs enough funding. It's not, in my opinion, there's lots that need to be done. For example, look at the patrol cars. There's a time we had an issue somewhere in Mukono and it was quite urgent, but the lady told me honestly, but Council, what do you want me to do? There's someone who, the suicide case, someone has gone to get the body, take it to the mortuary. The one patrol they had, you understand. So we had to wait for about 4 to 5 hours, but is that still response? Are you still responding to an emergency after 5 hours, really and truly? So when the car comes again, she has to make a phone call and get fuel. So when we talk about police and its challenges, have you seen these booths where police officers operate? Yeah. When you go to a police post or police station, the first thing they tell you, if you want a bond form, you have to go, there's a photocopier. Like, they are not financed. We need to finance police. By the way, you people may talk about, as other people taking the big cakes about what? Policing is one of the things we must, just as health, we must invest in security. All these things they do are shooting police, because police posts are now in people's, they normally rent a shop-like place. They can't condone it off. They have no perimeter. Bari muzigo. You find a police station in muzigo, or muzigo. You pass in. I think we need to elevate the picture of the Uganda police force, both in communities. All these things we're talking about, and that's why people don't respect police officers. Poor men and women are not paid well. That's why I've talked about the aspect of borrowing. They borrow foodware. Kati, if you want for them to stand away from communities and have the power, let's energize, let's elevate them. Let's pay them well, that motivates, pay that motivates them, but let's facilitate their execution of work. Time and again, we have talked about challenges in investigation here, but what brings about the challenges? Someone tells you have to go to, for example, Bundibujo to get talked to a SAS or whatever. So the issue of funding the Uganda police is key in terms of dealing with criminality and of course lawlessness. It's key. So let's, for me, I think on top of the issue that the president raised about the roadblocks, there are many other things that need to work. The roadblocks can't work in unison. They have to be complemented by many other aspects. Majorly, I've talked about, for us, revising about the decorum of police officers, but secondly, and equally important, the funding. Uganda Police Force is terribly wanting in terms of funding.
Absolutely. And of course, that is also a call of action to the Uganda government to make sure that we have enough funding. And also on the side of community, help police to help you. And that means that you also get to be sober on the road, avoid reckless driving. We want to save lives, minimize accidents, but also you don't want to be caught up being in jail during Christmas, or even worse, losing your life because of reckless driving. So let's respect these roadblocks and adhere to the guidelines as they are provided by the Uganda Police. Now we'll be going into our dailies right after this break.
Paying for groceries the old way.
3, 4, yeah.
Allow me.
Paying for groceries with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to conveniently pay for goods and services. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
That's my wife.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagements with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, our newspapers this morning, we start off with New Vision. Donors demand all schools register on the new ministry system. That is a story on page 5. Magical Christmas win trip to 2. That is also right there. Details are on page 2. But the big headline, Umeme exit. What next for the shareholders? Government is to pay company trillions in unrecovered investments. That is on page 8 of the New Vision for today. Teso bids farewell to Bishop Wandera. That is on page 3. First Lady World Bank discuss projects. Now that is also one on implementation process of skills project on page 4 of the New Vision. Now they give you a picture right there as Museveni meets investors in the UK. Right there, President Museveni looking at the Ugandan-made products after meeting investors and fund managers. Now that is a detailed story on page 6 of the Daily Monitor. Pension shillings 74 billion released for the ex-UTL staff. That is a story on page 7. Police roadblocks are back following a presidential directive, and that is also detailed on page 3 of the New Vision. Crossing over onto the second page, now news on camera. Christians carry a young boy and girl in a symbolic canoe during the procession of the Holy Book. Now this was during the Thanksgiving Mass. They give you pictures right there, but also more on the Bride and Groom Expo. Today in history, back in 1999, Dr. Chigozi is new UIA boss. Details and more stories in the New Vision.
Now in the Daily Monitor, UK sanctions spark Kayihura's fight back. The ban means that the former IGP is unwelcome guest to the UK soil and can neither wire money through British banks nor benefit from UK government funding. Now Judiciary holds special court session for Justice Eweri, and MPs sign motion to censure Namuganza. Now still in the papers, personal finance, do not wait for January, start planning now. That's for those who have to take kids back to schools. 20 tenders up for grab from various agencies. But also inside the papers, we'll be looking at Betty Kamya, the Inspector General of Government. There has praised the bold and revealing journalism by Monitor publications. Still in the papers, they give you a pictorial memory where we see Pope John Paul VI, the first Pontiff set foot on African soil, listens to speech by then President Nyonyintono Obote at Parliament in 1969. Woodrow Wilson arrives in France for peace talks. That was in 1918, December 13th, and Saddam Hussein captured. That is December 13th, 2003.
Move on to the New Vision Sport, your World Cup paper, and a big headline right there, final call. Now that is in the aftermath of Croatia's stunning penalty shootout against Brazil. Now they have to face Argentina. Today's big game, Argentina versus Croatia. Of course, the statistics of that, Lionel Messi right there, warming up to see if they can take for the third time the World Cup. Well, more details in that, experts' opinion, of course, in there, and of course what you can look at in terms of home support for Argentina, but also more on the side of Croatia and a gear-up and much more efforts towards tomorrow's game as well. France versus Moscow, also details for you right there in today's New Vision.
Now, discipline versus Messi, what shall we see tonight? That's what in the papers, Messi or Modric magic, where the battle lines are drawn. And still about the same, Morocco is capable of winning World Cup. Sunday, Olise comes out to say, and Arsenal fans brace to meet legends. Now, of course, Rugomoka severs NRC dream, and semi-finals, Croatia count on discipline in face of hungry Messi.
And of course, we cross over onto the Daily Nation for this morning, looking at Ruto's plan to lower food prices. That and more. Of course, looking at Kenyan fated for school tech projects. Nelly Kaboy quit top job to set up computer labs for children right there.
And still looking at the Daily Nation, we'll be focusing also on those who dined in our home, have betrayed us. Who's saying that? Get more of the stories. And backstory of Azimio's loss in elections. They give you things are not rosy in Mr. Raila Odinga's coalition, where allies are locked in a blame game over the outcome of the August election. Now, KCPE results out next week, says, that is Machogu Education CS, says his ministry had put in place stringent measures to guard against cheating exams. Still in the Daily Nation, Kenyans fated for school tech projects. Nelly Cheboy quit top job to set up computer lab, as Mollen did read earlier, and they give you details of the same and how this she will do.
Interesting right there, but Felix, talking about today's big game, Argentina versus Croatia. Your take on this?
Definitely for me, it's Argentina. I have a great passion and love for those countries of the South American side. There's something just unique about them. So my love for such countries is quite high there.
Well, I hope it's not because of Messi that, you know, a lot of Ugandans are actually rooting for Argentina, but I think more efforts towards the France and Morocco game for tomorrow. It looks like a lot of people will be caught up in the middle, because you see a lot of people supporting France because, you know, the team is dominated by most black people.
I can tell you what I'll be supporting. I'll tell you here, France. So you don't have to, you know. But it is what it is. Let's wait for the game and see how it will turn out. We hope that it will be a good game. Yeah. Of course, in favor of Messi. I love Croatia. I deeply love Croatia, but I love Argentina and Messi more. That's the truth.
Well, we have today to find out. All these games are going to be live on UBC, and of course you can count on the best analysis from our sports team, and of course the best commentary as well. That is from Peter Otai. The games will be live, and today's game is at 10 p.m. You can look out for that. For right now, we want to also take you onto the road and look at the traffic situation. We did start up with a little bit of rains, and of course that also kind of links up to the building up of traffic across most roads. And of course, we're looking at the main Jinja Highway, Kampala Jinja Highway. It looks like we have mostly a clear road right there. As you're looking at green lines, that is indicative of much more relief when it comes to traffic across the Kampala Jinja Highway. As you're heading all the way from areas of Bugolobi, looks to be quite clear in terms of those green lines right there. But also as you continue ahead, if you're headed into town towards Clock Tower right there, that is where we have a little bit of traffic building up as you head towards the roundabout. But those leaving the roundabout off Jinja Highway, if you're headed for Nakawa Road, the other side, it looks like that is quite clear in terms of traffic and can be one to use. Now, if you're also using the side to the down Old Port Bell Road, that is one to look out for. There's a little bit of clear traffic in terms of those green lines. But again, also as you head onto the roundabout, the Clock Tower, you look at traffic building up. Now it's just within the roundabout, and of course the road right there from Nakawa, that also indicates that there is a little bit of traffic in terms of that area. Also, if you're using the upper road, Wampeo Avenue, there is a little bit of traffic, actually more traffic in terms of the red lines right there using Wampeo Avenue. Now, if you're headed into Kampala and you're using that road, you might want to take a detour probably towards Centenary Lane out there, to avoid that area of the roundabout where there seems to be a little bit of traffic. But then again, you have quite clear traffic as you're heading off the lights, the traffic lights on Ginger Road. That is a little bit clear. But then again, if you're leaving the roundabout towards the traffic lights, there is more traffic right there. That could take you more hours delayed. That is in terms of the colors, right, looking into that dark red color, meaning that traffic is really intense in that particular area. So if you have a way of avoiding that, that means that you can avoid that route right there. But also looking at access road, even those joining into the main Kampala-Jinja highway, there's a little bit of traffic, and more to that actually coming all the way from the Mukwano Road, the upper area of the 60th Street and 7th Street. There is much more traffic, and of course that is, if you're using the Mukwano Road, that means you're taking all this traffic all the way from the Nsambia side. That looks to be also building up with a lot of traffic, so that is one to avoid this morning. Actually, if you're looking at most of those roads over there indicating red lines and orange lines, that means that those roads are all full of intense traffic and one to avoid. But getting back also as you join access road towards Jinja Highway, again there is much more traffic. Actually, if you headed into town, you could choose to use the station road, which is a one-way road, but if you're using access road to go into town, that means you can take that, because there seems to be quite a little bit of relief in terms of traffic for that. That means that you can avoid the main highway, which has traffic all the way heading towards town. Now, as you start to join Kampala Road, there is relief in terms of traffic also for those joining into the roundabout, but also towards the light. But as you leave the lights, that means that traffic clears a little bit, and you look at more of that as you head more into the Kampala Road. You're looking at a little bit of traffic building up for those joining town, but if you're leaving town, it looks like it is a relief a little bit. But also you have to also bear in mind that then you'll be joining the intense traffic on the light. So if you can take an upper detour, that means using some roads out there, that is towards the Parliamentary Avenue, the Saidi Barre Road Avenue, that means you can use that. And of course that will be joining onto the Nile Avenue, which seems to be also a little bit clear for this morning. That is one you can use to avoid the traffic that is on the Jinja Road. Also, if you could use the Parliamentary Avenue, that is for traffic leaving town, it means you can avoid a little bit of traffic on the main highway out there, that is on the Kampala Road. But then again, back to Kampala Road, you look at some of the traffic building up across the roads that are joining into that road. Entebbe Road as well is one of those where we have a little bit of intense traffic, but most of that does clear as you head onto the main road in Kampala. Now moving further, as you're joining the Jinja Road, it looks like also that is a little bit of intense traffic. As you head towards Bombo Road, also that is quite intense traffic to look at. And of course you can decide on what to use when the time comes and you're on that road. Well, also for this morning, we want to take you through what is happening across the weather and nature session, and that is looking at what is happening across the world. Now, we do know that there has been a lot of proceedings ever since we did exit COP27. Now, the main question is whether or not countries are taking serious the whole target that was laid up by COP, and of course, ranging from the Paris Agreement that is putting a target of 1.5 degrees Celsius as a limit for warming. But for this century, we're also having our eyes on the European Commission, which has so far made commitments on what they are willing to do and what they are not willing to do. Now, the big question is, most of these events that did take place within COP27 were looking at whether countries are willing to put their targets. Now, it looks like there is a huge footprint when it comes to the European nations in terms of looking at ambitions to be made. Now, countries try to weaken the EU clampdown on methane emissions as well. This is a report that came out yesterday looking at Brussels, the European Union countries trying to look at the block, which they did plan on methane emissions in the oil and gas sector. But we do know that methane is one of those gases that are also worrying. Now, we might look at carbon dioxide as having much more of the concentration in the atmosphere, but with methane, even the smallest concentration does trap a lot of heat that could, without regulation, it could lead to catastrophic warming effects. And this is why the EU did pledge at COP27 climate conference to do more to tackle potential in greenhouse gas, the potent greenhouse gas that is methane. But at least now we're looking at the fact that that effort has not been put back home. And now scientists are coming out to say we demand for action, we need more regulations when it comes to methane. And this is what is being tasked to the EU, make sure that they can come up with plans on how they're going to do that. And of course, we also have our eyes on that because we want to reduce this global warming. Now, on the other hand, we have also seen more efforts from G7. Now, G7 did establish a climate club to support green transition. This is one that was actually looked at yesterday as well, looking at what they could be doing to support the green transition, and that is for Berlin. Now, the group of the G7 economic power decided on Monday to set up an international climate club and invest, and they did invite the states as well to be part of that. That means that they will be looking into more ambitious climate policies and of course to join it, meaning that with the US joining the G7 in Germany right now, we could be looking at more ambitious targets, especially for a climate club. And of course, now the question is whether or not this will be effective. Well, we do know that also in their ambitious nature, they are looking at how can they support the developing countries, because we do know that these are nations that already have the finances to deal with the impacts of climate change if they are faced with most of these climate events. And we've seen it back and forth. They have heat waves, they have wildfires, they have, you know, all these effects of climate change, and they're able to swiftly deal with them because of the finances easily at their disposal. But how about the developing nations, the vulnerable countries that are having to deal with most of these effects without finances, which is why they're coming up to set aside some of these funds to benefit the nations that are vulnerable to climate change and are unable to take care of themselves or even to adapt to the changing weather patterns. That is one that we're still looking for. We do know that even COP27 did set up goals to make sure that developing countries are benefiting, and of course with regard to what was the biggest item, that is loss and damage, and we're still yet to identify how those funds are going to be distributed and how we are going to be benefiting. But Uganda as a country, we have also been making our efforts towards making sure that we can benefit from some of this aid that comes in, especially from nations that are the biggest polluters, because most of these are contributing to the problem. So it's only fair that they are part of the solution and reduce the impacts or the effects of climate change with regard to extreme weather events. Talking of which, we've also seen more wildfires breaking out across the world. And recently it is Chile that is now battling a lot of wildfires, and for now we know that these fires have extended a big section of Chile. We have firefighters on ground trying to put places in order. What we do know so far as of the report that was given out this morning is that the wildfires have curbed more than 40,000 hectares of woodland and putting local communities at risk. That is, of course, when it comes to control. They have also made evacuations to make sure that people are out of the harm's way, but we're looking at a big chunk of land that could still be affected. We're talking about Santiago that is being affected mostly. And of course, this is not the first time that the area has had to deal with wildfires. This year, we have seen more wildfires break out of this particular place. And of course, worrying is this could be a constant issue as we talk about more effects of climate change. Now, what feeds into the wildfires is that, yes, a fire breaks out, but you have winds that are feeding into these fires. You have more of temperatures being up there. That means that with the rise in temperatures and, you know, sagging winds across the area, that feeds into more of these fires breaking out. And they have already been linked to the fact that we have rising temperatures and the climate effects across most of the areas that are being affected. Now, last year alone, they also had to deal with more than 5 outbreaks of these fires. And now we're looking at more of these as we end the year, also breaking out across woodland. And of course, they're also looking at 9,900 acres of land so far that have been affected by these fires. But we at least know that evacuations are in play and the firefighters and police are on ground to make sure that they are able to put out these fires so that they do not affect more areas within Chile, and that is where they are in terms of fighting most of these wildfires. We also want to take a look at the situation over the country for right now. We did start off with those rains across the Lake Victoria Basin. That was across parts of Kampala, Mukono, Entebbe, Wakiso. Now we already still have these rains in most of these areas. Kampala as well, the rains are starting to draw down, but again, the system is still in the area. We're looking at areas of Jinja, Tororo. We also still have rains over that area, so you can expect that those will be clearing a little bit later during the afternoon, but that does leave a cold morning, so that is one to prepare for. The rains were extending all the way up to areas of Masaka as well. We still have that system in play where you're seeing the orange colors to blue colors right there. That is indicative of the rainy system, and that is one to still look out for the western side. That means areas of Masaka, Rengo, Zimbabwe, Rakai. You can expect those rains to continue into your morning. Also, we look at that system that is starting to build up right in the middle areas, that is across Midwestern Uganda, also towards areas of Mubende. That is one to look out for, meaning that it could actually be intensifying. We will have more rains across that area. That takes in areas of Wero, Woblenzi, Nakaseke, Nakasongola right there. Do expect to have those rains as the morning progresses. That also extends towards areas of Fort Portal. We're looking at more cloudy weather developing. That means that we could also be having a little bit of rains as the morning progresses. Across the northwestern part of the country, we're looking at areas of Arua, Yumbe. We did start off with more rains across that area earlier in the morning, but looks like that is starting to clear off mostly in terms of sunny and cloudy conditions. Mostly cloudy weather also for areas of Gulu, but that will also be clearing on as the morning progresses. We're looking at more sunshine also as well across areas of the Karamoja region, Moroto, Kotido, starting off with quite some sunny skies. Padel as well. You look at Amuria, Soroti right there, starting off with a sunny morning, and we're looking at Mbale also this morning. They did have a little bit of sun coming through, but then again we have that rainy system that is headed your way. That one in orange colors, blue right there towards Mbale, that is one to look out for. It is going to be bringing in rains. Also, as we speak, that system is crossing over areas of Bududa right there, Palisa, Busia. We could be looking at quite a cloudy morning for you, and of course that means that that will take in through the western side areas of Kamuli. You can expect to have a little bit of rains for this morning, and of course that same system will be extending to much of central. Right now as we speak, we do have those rains still lingering around areas of Werwero, Woblenzi, but that system will also be heading westwards, meaning that Mubende, you should look out for most of those rains likely to be headed your way. Now back on the islands of Lake Victoria, we're also seeing more rains coming across, especially for areas of Kalangala. Even as we speak right now, the rains over there, it looks like that system will be right in play for quite some hours, almost the entire morning for today. Could be dealing with those rains, but also look at areas of Kampala that still have that blue color right there, indicating that we'll have rains, but that system seems to be moving away for some areas, so meaning that a little bit of pockets of Kampala might have a relief in terms of rains. That is for mostly the eastern side, but we look at that system also ranging from the western side, the one that is headed towards Masaka. It looks to be intensifying. That means it will take in most areas also across Mityana, Mukono, Wakiso, Entebbe. We could be looking at more rains coming through for this morning, and most of those systems will be intensifying later as we head into the afternoon, especially for the southern sector and areas within the western part of the country, most especially the southwestern area. That is where we have Kabale Highlands as well, towards the Rwenzori area. That is one area to look out for. If you're headed into those areas, you might want to make sure that you have your umbrella handy, you have your warm jacket, just to avoid inconveniences when it comes to rain. And a little bit of advice also during such seasons when we have mostly rainy conditions in the morning. You have to be a little bit alert on the road. Make sure that you're able to see where you're going. The visibility can be reduced at times, so that means it's incumbent upon you to make sure that you're safe and keep the rest of the people around you safe. That is it in terms of weather updates for this morning. I want to say have a good morning, and of course as we lead into Christmas, Feliz Navidad.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Shot put is an Olympic sport. You throw a small but heavy metal ball as far as you can.
Long shot.
I bought a lottery ticket.
You know, the chances of winning are very small.
I know.
Very, very small. What I mean is, you're not going to win.
I know it's a long shot, but the top prize is $35 million.
$35 million? Later.
Where are you going?
To buy all the tickets.
A long shot is something that has little chance of succeeding. You may not expect to succeed, but long shots can be worth trying. People who follow horse racing use this expression a lot. And that's English in a Minute.
FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022. The wait is over.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here. In the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's what you feel in the gentle caress of tropical wind from the mountaintops. And the glow in your heart from a warm neighborly invite. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking to the taste of food that takes you on a journey. In the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
It's our mission to secure your money.
Protecting your money is as important as earning it. It is for this reason that the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, DPF, was established by the government of Uganda to provide deposit protection to customers of regulated financial institutions. In the unlikely event that your commercial bank, credit institution, or microfinance deposit-taking institution fails, the DPF will pay you up to 10 million Uganda shillings. Keep your personal information such as national identification number, mobile phone, or an alternative bank account updated with your banker. Terms and conditions apply. For more information, contact DPF at Aha Towers, Plot 7 Lodell Road, Kampala. Call 0312-206-400 or visit our website at www.dpf.or.ug.
We are the DPF. We protect your money. Protection Fund of Uganda.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100 066 or send a free SMS to your report on 8500. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
A lovely morning to you, and thank you so much for keeping with us here on UBC TV this cold Tuesday morning. I'm Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Now, this morning we are going to be discussing an issue of national concern. We know many people are now wondering what is happening when it comes to affairs of the August House, that is the Parliament, and conduct, behavior, demeanor of members of Parliament. We've seen a series of events right from the time when we saw some throw chairs, holding microphones, throwing them at one another, but also we've seen even censuring, attempted censuring of a member of Parliament and also a minister. Also, we've seen a commissioner lose his responsibility because of misconduct and misbehavior. Now, joining me this morning is a seasoned politician, a man who has been around, who has been in the August House, and also actively participating and monitoring the political arena of this country, and this is Honorable Captain Francis Babu. Captain, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, and good morning.
Good morning to you. Now, Captain, you are closely following events on the political arena of this country, but also you've ever been in Parliament. And yes. One of the things that is of concern today is the way Parliament is being run, the way members of Parliament have chosen, some, to conduct themselves. First, we know that for a member of Parliament, you are an honorable member of Parliament. I think let's begin by throwing more light on that. Honorable, do we have honorables or do we have members of Parliament?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit harsh. What really is the problem is a very simple thing. Is that over the years, behavior and etiquettes of our people generally has decayed. There's a little bit of a problem. Not the majority, of course. There's a few people who do not behave very well, but that is to be expected. In a big house where you have 529 people, there are people who come from different backgrounds, and the orientations the members of Parliament get when they first come is not enough. If you look at the courts of law in this country, and you look at the behavior of the advocates, the lawyers, and the judges, if you like, the officers of the court, is absolutely immaculate, because they are taught right from the beginning how they behave in a house, and they follow the rules explicitly as they are put out there. A good lawyer and a good judge is judged on the way they behave inside the court. Now, the parliament is usually the bigger part of that, and therefore during the orientation of the members of parliament when they first join, these are the kind of areas they've got to look at. But it also takes the person. Does the person have humility? Does the person have the ability to be able to behave, respectfully in a household like that? Now, the word honorable member really comes out of behavior. How does one behave in a big house like that? Now, the management, I think we must give credit to the speakers. They've done it reasonably well in a big parliament like that. That's a very big parliament, and they have really kept it going. The previous parliament, where the people were fighting, there was a lot. Now, the bad behavior is coming out of the decay of our politics. People believe they've got to get they've got to be seen, if you like. They want to get visibility, and they think to get visibility one must behave in a certain way, which unfortunately is wrong. If you behave with humility in a nice way, and you actually make your points nicely, people recognize you. You don't need to get out of the norm to be recognized. And I think this is where the problem is. And we need to really talk about orientation of our people going parliament. And this goes back to us who elect members of parliament. Are we electing the right members of parliament? Now, the majority of members of parliament, you don't even hear about them. They do stand up and make their points, and they are respected on the both ends of the houses. There are people in that parliament who, when they stand up and speak, they actually move the whole house, and they are respected. If you feel that by standing up and banging the table and calling other people's names, that's the way to debate, then I am sorry, you are in the wrong place. The parliament is a place where you need a bit of etiquette, you need to understand the rules, and you need to respect other people. And that's why they've got all those points in their rules. Now, if you look at the people who have done wrong in those parliaments, they are such a small percentage compared to the majority. You have 529 people. If you really look at them, how many people have misbehaved? There are very few. So unfortunate. In every parliament in the world, you have people who behave like that. I was looking at a parliament in Senegal recently where somebody crossed the floor and slapped a lady. I have looked at members of parliament who have called others names. I've seen them boxing each other in other international parliament. And we are trying to copy. Unfortunately, we are copying parliaments that are not ours, that our culture sometimes do take over, and some of us misbehave.
Honorable Francis, you've mentioned an issue to do with the size of this parliament. I must say, by the time you're there, it wasn't much as this big as it is. Could this be one of the reasons? Recently, I saw one MP and a minister saying, why should I go in parliament and I'm given only 2 to 3 minutes to speak? I rather not even go there, but find ways of being in my constituency. So
actually, if you've been hearing me speak, I've been insisting that this parliament is too big for our country, both financially and in terms of running a good parliament. I therefore feel, and very strongly, and I like to agree with one of the proposals that came, let's reduce the parliament, use that budget to do other things for the country. For example, we need more policemen, we need more people in the army, we need more teachers, we need better schools. I think we can do with very small numbers. In fact, I still feel very strongly that with the numbers we have, 150 people are enough to be a good parliament of this country. And if you feel you need a little bit more, we could have an upper house where you have 150 in the lower house and 50 in the upper house. And that to me would be a fantastic way of doing it. The lower house would be based on numbers of the people you represent, and the upper house will represent the region. Let us say, we can say that each district would have one person, and therefore have people up there. But that is something we can discuss. It's a different model, and I feel that will do even better. And then you people who are electing, by the way, even you who is sitting there in that UBC, how do you give your vote? Who do you give your vote to? I am told there are people who voted last time, they don't even know the members of parliament they voted for. So I think time has come for us to also think how we vote our members of parliament.
Then let's look at the issue of orientation, because you rightly said that orientation must be key here. In Parliament, I know this is not mandatory, and I've heard of a number of members of Parliament who even never turn up for this orientation. So, same as absenteeism, let's look at that arm that is supposed to cause respect, adherence, complying with rules, procedures, and such things. Because we've seen members of Parliament, much so the committees, running after everything that is happening, causing sanity. But then, at times, you wonder, where do they get the moral authority given on how they conduct themselves and how they handle business? So, who is supposed to behold those errant, those that do not want to comply, and are they doing the right work?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. You are really talking about the rules that governs the parliament. Are they good enough, or do we need to visit them? Do we need to really sit down and think about it very deeply? How should we run parliament? I think this needs a complete mindset, a mindset change. We need to really sit down and look at something extremely stringent. How do we run parliament so that it's effective? And to me, the numbers become important. The smaller the number, the easier it is to run the parliament. And secondly, the sanctions. How do you sanction members of parliament who do not behave well, who do not attend well? So all these things need to be looked at. And I think you've got a very good point. The point is, how do we go about it? And I think time has come for us to have a constitutional review on how a parliament should be, and look at it deeply. Start with the constitution, come down to the rules that run parliament, look at the houses. Do we need one house or two houses? And do they need to be small? Could this be one of the reasons? Or should we have a regional legislative assembly? For example, we could say, let's have a region. Let's have the North, let's have West Nile, have the Greater North, have two Eastern blocks, to have Buganda, have Ankole, have Kigezi, have things like the Rwenzori. And then you have parliaments there. You have what they call the legislative assemblies, so that members of parliament at that level. You know, the other day I looked at the council meeting when they were burying the former speaker. I was totally impressed. They had a beautiful district parliament, district council. The debate was mature. They spoke very well, and I was very impressed. So maybe we should start with the regional legislative assemblies, and then have a smaller parliaments at the top. We have a region, let's say, let's say West Nile, they have a region, they have a small legislative assembly with members there, and we see how that works. Maybe that's what we need to do now. We need to refocus.
Now, Captain, you also talked about the issue of the electorate. When you look at people that were in the CA and other two parliaments that followed there, the stature, the behavior, the character, the education levels compared today, why are we seeing the trend of voting changing? Because today, and I'm afraid...
It's very simple. When we went to the CA, if you remember, maybe you were very young, but if you remember, what really happened is we didn't vote on multi-party basis. We voted on a general basis, and we went for a common campaign. We had what they call a candidates meeting, where all the candidates who stood went in front of the people, in an area, and they would speak. And people looked at the 8 people or 7 people who stood, and they chose beautifully. If you looked at our Constituent Assembly, that was one of the most perfect assemblies I've ever seen. The people were very highly respectable. They did a very good job, and I think that was the epitome of our elections. And the next 2 parliaments were elected virtually on the same basis, although they allowed people to campaign. But I think we hurried to go into multi-parties. Our biggest problem is going multi-parties. We've gone into competition. We don't understand the liberal democracy. And therefore what is happening is that we are choosing for the sake of choosing. When somebody is annoyed, he chooses. He does not even choose a person. He chooses the color or chooses the symbol. So we need to sit down, and even our people have to know that we've got to build some sort of democracy without multi-parties, probably initially. And the only way we can do that is to unite the country, and then we can then go multi-party after the country is united.
Now, Honorable, there are also concerns with education level, experience, and maybe more of the qualifications for a member of parliament. Today, when we have someone right from university, some choose to go into parliament. Others, when you look at the leadership experience criteria, they're totally with no experience at all. Do you think we should also lift on the qualifications? That's not just maybe senior 6, not just ability that maybe you have bachelor's, but we look at more stringent measures away from saying you're the people's choice to determine who comes to the August House.
No, I think what we've gone, because of multi-parties, we've gone into credentialism. I am not a supporter of credentials. I am a supporter of leaders. Now, if you go back before the white man came here, this country had leaders, and these leaders, the local people looked for them. They looked for them from homes. They actually went and said, who is this man? Who is this Kirabo, for example? Where does he come from? Which home does he come from? Does he have the qualities? They would investigate you and find out if you really are a good leader. Now, a good leader does not need to be a university graduate. He does not have to be a PhD. The credentialism seems to be one of the areas where our colonial masters took us to. We can get good leaders, for example, without really pushing on the credentials. We must really go out there and look for leaders. Leaders are not born. Leaders are made and teach. For example, if you go to a village in Uganda here, each village has got families. You've got so many families. And in those families, they are families people consider respectable on the block. These are the people who have produced some of our good leaders. Leadership is a talent, is not credentials. There are people with credentials who have no manners at all. People who are totally disgusting. They say they've got PhDs, they've got this, but they're absolutely misfits in our society. What we need are good people who have got good leadership, people who have got good quality. And believe you me, the system we had, which started at LC1, where you started at a village, they elected people, they went to the parish, from the parish we sort of managed to get good leaders. Now, the question is, can we start supporting good leaders in our society? I am saying yes, we can. And there's some very good ones too. Credentialism doesn't take us anywhere. We've got people who did not have those credentials who did very well. For example, Obote didn't have a degree, but he did very, very well. There's a man in London who was a prime minister. He had gone through the banking system. He was not a university graduate. He was one of the best prime minister. His name was Major. And you have people like Churchill, who was an academic failure, but who was a very successful prime minister. You've had some American presidents who are not who did not go to college, who did very well. So it really depends what we are talking about. So credentialism is not the answer. The answer is getting good leaders, and good leaders can be supported by the people if you give them a chance to do so.
Well, Captain, there is a talk where some people actually say the likes of Captain Francis Babu, the likes of, well, let me not mention names that are not present here, that we can hold you accountable for that type of parliament that we have today, that they looked at such honorable men, well qualified leaders, and they believe you did a disservice to them. So they were frustrated and now decided to bring anybody that pleases them to come and be a people's representative. That the frustration is a result of when they thought that the pedigree that they believed in disappointed them. Now they resorted to anything.
No. Those are excuses. For us, some of us, they even stole our votes. They cheated us. They lied. They never, I mean, we won. And they cheated. They took our results. And the ones who came or who cheated our results were not the best. So as far as I'm concerned, those are cock and bull story. The real truth is there are people who are the pedigree, who can do a good job, and who were cheated out of Parliament, and who did all sorts of things. Now, Parliament there's nobody who disappointed them. In fact, they did a very good job up to that point. In fact, they brought Parliament from nothing, and they found a Parliament there. What they did when they went into multi-party system, they went into a system of cheating, and then they lost their best men. They are now regretting, and they are looking for excuses to sort of smear the people who were there. But I don't think, if you looked at the Constitution, if you looked at what we passed when we were there was nothing that disappointed. What disappointed them is that they now wanted to choose people on a multi-party basis by choosing people who because they were annoyed by some people who were in government, not with the people who were in Parliament. The people who were in government who disappointed them is completely different argument. So I do not agree with that, unfortunately.
Well, I just want to remind our viewers that you can send us a WhatsApp message or a text message on the topic of discussion. I'll be reading it out and Captain Francis will be responding. Captain, also there's been an issue of excessive commercialization of politics. That, well, people may not come to serve, but because of the money. If you went on the streets of Kampala or any city, and you asked people the 5 top-paying jobs in this country, one would tell you, being a member of Parliament, it's everyone's desire that if I get there, well, my destiny will have been enlightened. So, how best can we decommercialize politics in this country? Because people are saying that is why we are having people of all walks, no respect, no dignity, but because of this money, they are coming into Parliament.
No. You see, what some of you look at, those are symptoms. Symptoms of the word competition. When you brought multi-parties, which you are copying from the Western countries, there is competition of getting into government position. There is also the weakness that becoming a politician, you make more money when you become a member of Parliament. That's the assumption. Now, whenever there is competition, there are traits. Human beings have got traits. Look at it when they are looking at football. When there are people competing in football, they call each other names, they shout, they do all sorts of things. Now, competition of becoming member of parliaments brings out certain traits. One, the traits of those who are frightened of that competition. Some of them go as far as even killing. Others go as far as smearing others. Others go as far as abusing others. Others go and start blackmailing and at the same time smearing their opposition. Now, this comes out because of the competition between people who are dying to become members of parliament. Others go out and they cheat, they rig the elections. Others, because they are so frightened of their seats, they start calling other people negative, that these guys are not up to the mark. The kind of thing you said earlier on, they disappointed us. Nobody disappointed anybody. It's just because the competition is a bit stiff and the people are dying to go to parliament because they want to go and get a little bit of money, which is not even there. Because the members of parliament, the money they get As you have realized now, I'm told they are all under debts. They can't even pay their debts. So the whole argument is really being skewed so that people get the wrong information.
Captain, also let's look at issues like mentoring. When we look at big political parties, because you're saying one of the problems why we are having this is the multi-party dispensation we choose to take. Now, when we look at the likes of the China Communist Party, when we come to the ANC, when we go to our brothers in Tanzania, there is mentorship and card identification. That you find that you don't just cross from one party today, then tomorrow you have a ticket for another party. You don't just wake up, you've been nowhere, because you have money, then you enter politics. These parties identify, these parties mentor, and they bring the best of their cream, well organized to represent them. What do you make of the Uganda situation in terms of our political parties, where one could be in a political party today, then the next time he's in another political party, even in less than a month?
That's exactly, that follows up to the earlier information I was giving you. People look where they can easily, if you like, they can squeeze through so that they can become members of parliament. So if they think the other party is a little bit more popular and people are no longer electing individuals, but they are electing a party, they run to a party and they are elected. People no longer elect him as a person. They are electing the party he's in. Now, that is something that is a weakness, and people want to take advantage so that they can go to parliament. But let's go back to the reason. Again, this is a symptom. One of the reasons why we are having this problem is that if you look at the European nations, people in places like Britain and Europe, they did not have initial democracy. They first united their countries. Then democracy came naturally by the growth of those countries. In Britain, the Industrial Revolution, and in Europe, brought about parties, but the parties were not there when the countries was uniting. Now, our country has not united from the time the British left us. The British found here nations, put them together in a country called Uganda, and then they thought that was now Uganda. But they never united us. They left us with a divide and rule. We are divided up to now, and nobody has united this country. And therefore the democracy is just sliding on top of a very unsettled foundation. So what basically is happening is that you are now looking at multi-parties which are not stable, and therefore the country cannot move directly into the area of governance. Now, Tanzania, you brought a very good country. The founding father united Tanzania, used all methods of uniting, and one of the cementing was the language. He made sure that the whole of Tanzania spoke one language. He made them understand that this is their country. He brought Ujamaa, which is brotherhood, and he created a country. And until today, now, it's standing on a firm foundation, and therefore they can elect. They now can go into multi-party and start moving forward. Initially, it was a one-party system. They have now introduced multi-party system, and it is working very well. And this is what we are trying to do. We've got to get this country to unite, to get those parties to work, and people will understand why parties are there. Those parties are founded on ideology. For example, a party is either follows on the socialist side, others follows on the capitalist side, and then they tell the people, for us, we can do this to make you get your services better. A human being who is being laid, all he wants is that their services are done, and they can get on to the country to understand that these people who are in leadership are serving those who are not in leadership. But it will take a little bit of time to get that.
Now, Honorable Captain Francis Babu, also, yes, day by day, we are moving into politics of cheap popularity.
Yes.
Populism, running away from issues. That is why you find that an honorable member of parliament will not say anything on the floor of Parliament where it matters, but will wait for everything to end. Then on the steps of Parliament, call upon journalists and make all sorts of statements regarding the issue that
even give them money to do so.
Even gives them money to do so. So, and he knows that what he has said and where he has said it, it doesn't matter, but he will dominate the airwaves. That is all about populism. Now, how are we going to move? An honorable member of Parliament will not present an issue on the floor of Parliament, but you find him demonstrating in the middle of the road, holding banners.
There's an example of a member of Parliament who paid the policeman to arrest him so that he could get popularity. Everybody knows about that. Now, the reason why they are doing this is it is the phase, it is the time. If you like, it is going to happen. But the person they are doing it to, the Ugandans who are watching, they are getting fed up with these kinds of cavalier methods of trying to get populism. Baganda call it tutumu. People are fed up. They are now going to say, wait a minute, we made a mistake here. These guys are deceiving us. You see, one man many years ago made a statement in Nigeria when the military was handing over to the civilian. He said, I would like to warn the elite in this country, those who are educated in this country, that you keep on starting problems. You star the country, and you star and you star. I want you to know that when the people get fed up, they will get very annoyed, and when the trouble starts, you take your bags, get on the aeroplanes, and go to foreign countries where you have kept your loot, where you have kept your money. And then the poor people will know better by when you come back next time. The poor people will know. The Ugandans will know when time has come, when you've deceived them, they will not continue working with you. As simple as that.
Well, let me read you some of the messages that are coming in from our viewers. It's a very nice argument in the presentation from Honorable Babu. Very nice advice to the country leaders. Honorable Captain Francis Babu, thank you very much for your educative words. Like Sam has choice but chances in color. Now we move on. Another one says, thank you so much, Captain Francis Babu. I think the reason why NRM is opposed, okay, this one is a bit off topic.
No, it's all right. Yeah, I know what he's saying. I know where he's going.
Because he says, this is Wanjusi Lasto from Manafa district. I think the reason why NRM is opposed to early campaigning is to first serve her people by fulfilling what was in their manifesto.
Yes.
So
No. I think the reason why we should really discourage insecure politicians. Insecure politicians are the ones who want to start campaigning early. Because in the time which is given to campaign, he thinks or she thinks she cannot convince the people. Those are insecurity in those who want to become leaders. Leaders should not be insecure. Leaders should be sure of what they are going to tell the people, and the time given is enough. In fact, if you remember, when we first started, and you know what? They chose the best chairman that time. You don't have to speak all day for the people to know whether you're a good leader or not. So you don't need 5 years to campaign. You need a few months to do it. And therefore, those insecure politicians should wait for the time and start campaigning.
Well, one says, I am actually Robert Habakuku. We have a dead political system where individuals think that being a member of parliament is a source of income rather than execution of duty. Look at most political parties in our country. Their ideologies are theories on paper and inducing violence, thinking that it's the way of being more famous.
Absolutely right. And I would like to thank him. He has seen it correctly. Some people think this is a commercial venture, that when they are elected, they go and make money, and therefore, by causing confusion, they are elected. So what they do is they create a scenery. It's like acting on a stage. They create a situation whereby they get votes. But as I say, After some time, the people will know that you're telling lies. So it doesn't last. It is just a temporary thing.
Well, Captain, in the interest of time, what should be the way forward? Because we can't normalize an abnormality that, well, in our parliament, at one time, members will point fingers, someone will bang the desks, step on these tables, you know, counter-accuse. And in your conclusion, I would like you to factor in this issue of immunity. Are we using it right?
No, the immunity, there's nothing wrong with the immunity. I think the immunity is good. It gives respect to the parliament. It gives us respect to the parliamentarian. That is why, when you are a member of parliament, you do not misuse it. You do not abuse it. You do not abuse your immunity by going to parliament and misbehavior. You must have the humility that goes with the word honorable. Honorable is a very important word. And therefore, as far as I'm concerned, those who dishonor that respect be given to them and the immunity, they are abusive. But like I told you earlier on, there are 529 members of parliament. How many have misbehaved? If you look very carefully, they are not even 10, not even 20. So as far as I'm concerned, out of 529, if you say 10% were bad, they are not even 10%, not even 5.
But so the others are dormant. They don't, you know,
but you see,
they never catch the speaker's eye. So they may not even say anything on the answered.
Yeah, no, Kirabo, that is why I say the parliament should not be that big. That is something we should consider by sitting down on a table and reviewing it very carefully and seeing whether really members of parliament are useful if they can't speak for more than if they speak only for 2 minutes. So that is something that we should sit down and review and think very carefully, how do we go about it? That's why I gave you the different models we could have, and I think we can, and I think we can change what is going on. By the way, I still have hope, a lot of hope. I don't want to say that I've lost any hope. I've got a lot of hope, and I hope all the other Ugandans who are listening to us now can join me. We have hope. We can find solutions to that problem. We are not impotent of people who can do this. We've got a lot of people who can help us to make a good parliament. We've got a good people. We can look at our methods of electing parliament. We can look at different things we can do. Therefore, as we end, the immunity is important. Parliament must be respected. Immunity is important. The judges must be respected. There are certain things we must do. And to me, this is something we are copying. We must learn how to use it. Sometimes we don't know how to use it. Something we must learn. And therefore, like somebody said earlier on, we pray for our country and we pray for our leaders, and we hope that we can get good leaders in the next elections. I wish you the best of luck. And by the way, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Captain. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, those words were many of the messages coming in. Thank you so much, Captain Francis Babu, for your words of advice. They mean a lot to our country. A number of people have been thanking you for
Yeah, we have a beautiful country, by the way. Uganda is one of the most beautiful countries in Africa. It is in a very good locations, and I will not exchange it for any other country. And that's why I'm praying to God that we can find solutions to our small problems. They are not that big. We can find an answer.
I love that conclusion, because we have many of our generation who are saying, where else can we go? But when you say it is us to
I will not exchange this country for Britain, for America, for Dubai. I want us to build this country so that we can have all those things that people want in those countries here in Uganda. We can do it.
Well, thank you, Captain. Have a lovely day. Really appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Very interesting words there from Captain Francis Babu. Well, many say politics is a dirty game. Others are saying we are running away from politics and leave it to those who can manage the dirt in it. However, he still has hopes. We pray and hope that we will have honorable members of parliament and not just members of parliament. Ruben is very smart and ready to take you through sports. He's dressed like a coach of some team that I saw being defeated miserably in the World Cup. So I don't know if dress code also has a problem, has an issue, but also he didn't play soccer in the departmental games we had here. I'm wondering and thinking, had he played, would we win as TV or would we lose miserably? But he'll be here to tell us. Baganda sata mkute ya gamba ya. Is it easy to speak
and had to do on pick or otherwise. Well, I'll leave you with Ruben. Have a lovely day.